For the first time in years, the NBA has a relevant storyline. For the first time in years, the NBA has a relevant storyline that people want to see play out on the court. Most of the time, storylines in the NBA, they're happening off the court. But now, you have a legitimate rivalry that could carry the NBA at least through the next 3 or 4 years. And judging by the ratings Monday night, this rivalry has the chance to be box office. The debut of Luka Doncic in Los Angeles on ESPN, over 2 million viewers. Now, that number had absolutely nothing to do with LeBron James, who has been struggling just like the rest of the league to draw flies to a fresh turd. It damn sure had nothing to do with the opponent, since the Lakers were playing the team from Utah. I refuse to call them the Jazz. Last I checked, there was no jazz music in Salt Lake City. There's probably plenty of jizz, but there's damn sure no jazz. Over 2 million people tuned in to see Luka. Now, while it's great for the NBA, there is a prevailing narrative that it's bad for the Dallas Mavericks. Make no mistake about it, it's been a rough 2 weeks in Dallas. At times, the organization seems to be at war with its own fan base. Fans are getting kicked out of the arena for having the audacity to express their legitimate outrage. Hundreds of lonely men decided to organize. They decided to come together to defeat the plague of loneliness and protest outside of the American Airlines Center. We're talking about grown men protesting a basketball team. We're talking about grown men expressing their undying love for another dude. The disaster in Dallas has been amplified because Anthony Davis was hurt in his debut. Then PJ Washington got hurt again. Daniel Gafford, he's out for a couple of weeks. It was the worst possible time for everyone to get injured. Coming out of Monday night, I was starting to get worried. I was starting to think that the organization was losing the fan base. But after seeing what I saw last night, I realized that could not be further from the truth. Make sure to like and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. If you happen to stumble upon this video, be sure to check out my main channel, Behind the Line. Link to the main channels in the description below. One thing I have learned while covering cable news and politics on the main channel the last few years, the vocal minority, it rarely represents the majority. Oftentimes, we get caught up in the constant narratives that we see on social media, and we start thinking that everyone else feels the same way. We start thinking that normal people feel the same way. If you were to believe the vocal minority on Reddit, you would think that thousands of people have demanded refunds on season tickets, when the reality is, dudes on Reddit can barely afford the lube to spank the wanker, much less being able to afford nosebleed seats to watch an NBA game. If you were to believe the vocal minority on Reddit, you would think that thousands of people have canceled their subscription to Mavs TV. When the reality is, subscriptions have actually increased since Luka Doncic was traded. If you were to believe the lonely men on Reddit, you would think that the American Airlines Center was empty, and the half dozen or so people who were inside the arena, they are relentlessly booing Nico Harrison and the team. When the reality is, last night's game was sold out. There were over 20,000 people in the arena, and there was not a single boo. Matter of fact, the crowd in Dallas was on fire throughout the game. When it comes to providing adequate sports coverage, it is rare that I give credit to ESPN. As you guys know, ESPN's coverage of the NBA sucks. It's trash. But I will give credit to Tim Legler, one of the few at ESPN who's actually qualified and who actually analyzes the NBA. Tim Legler was covering the game last night. He spoke to a lot of people in Dallas. According to Tim Legler, the prevailing narrative amongst normal people, they are still supporting the team. They're not boycotting the organization for making a trade. You know who else is still watching the team? The people on social media who claim they're not. The people bitching and complaining. The people making pick me posts every day. The people making pay attention to me posts by claiming they're boycotting the franchise. Last night, I heard something that was very interesting. Now, I don't know if this is true or not. It's coming from Doug Gottlieb, but he claims to have spoken to several people within the NBA. According to Doug Gottlieb, Nico Harrison, he tried shopping Luka Doncic to other teams. He called Minnesota, offered Luka for Anthony Edwards. Timberwolves said, no thanks. Called Milwaukee, offered Luka for Giannis. The Bucks said, no thanks. I watched Luka in his debut Monday night. I watched some of the game last night. I like Luka Doncic. I think he's the best player in the league. One of the reasons I started following the Mavs, besides the fact that they're my wife's team, and I got so tired of the incompetence and the lack of accountability in New Orleans, I quit following the Pelicans. If you want to know why I quit following the Pelicans, go watch David Griffin's press conference from earlier this week. The same David Griffin that said Bruce Brown can play every position on the floor. Same David Griffin that said Bruce Brown could play the 5. The same Bruce Brown that is 6'4" and averages 4 rebounds a game. According to Dana Griffin, that is a high-quality center for us. Anyway, one of the reasons I started following the Mavs is because of Luka Doncic. But after watching the past 2 games, it is abundantly clear Luka is out of shape. But KC, it doesn't matter. Even when he's out of shape, he's the best player in the league. Yeah, I agree. For now. But you know what happens to out of shape young people? They become out of shape old people. Look at what's happening right now with Joel Embiid. A couple of years ago, Joel Embiid, best player in the league, at least according to the media who gave him the MVP over Jokic. Now, Joel Embiid, he can't fucking move. He needs a wheelchair to get up and down the court. I'm not saying it was the right decision to trade Luka Doncic. Do I think the overall team is better with Anthony Davis? Yes. But 2 things can be true at the same time. I still disagree with trading Luka, but that does not mean the concerns weren't legitimate. The future of the league is resting on the shoulders of Luka Doncic in Los Angeles. With him being in LA and this potential rivalry with the Mavs, this could carry the NBA for years. But that only happens if Luka stays healthy. Now, up to this point, he has been able to lack conditioning and be dominant. He has been able to lack conditioning and stay on the floor. But that becomes increasingly difficult as you get older. Anyway, give me your thoughts on this. Luka draws pretty good ratings for his debut on ESPN. Could this storyline carry the league? Also, is the outrage being exaggerated in Dallas? Is it just the vocal minority? I think so. What about you? Sound off in the comments below. I'll see you guys on the main channel.